Hey everybody. I wanted to create a video to go through the entire process of setting up your IDE or your integrated development environment. And this is probably one of the trickiest things for new programmers to figure out how to do and it depends on your level of comfort with technology. But I want to create a video that goes through from start to finish everything that you need to do to get up and running programming in Java with my favorite environment, which is Visual Studio Code. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you need to do is actually to have the Java development kit installed on your computer. So there's a couple different ways of going about this, but if we just type into Google JDK, um, it's going to pull up this main link right here, which is going to take you to oracle.com. So if we click on this, you'll see that we're brought to a download page where we've got a couple different options and all kinds of stuff. Don't worry so much about the versions right now. If you stick to SE11 or 13, you're going to be fine. So let's go ahead and just do 13, right? Now, beyond that, there's additional two different things. One is the official Oracle full copyrighted Java development kit, okay? Which means you have to actually have license to commercially produce products using the Java development kit. Now, if you're just in education and you're writing programs for class, not a big deal, okay? You'll be fine with this license. But I just wanted to point that out. That's one issue that there is. The other issue, or the other version, is if you click here, you can go to the Open JDK, which is actually produced by Oracle, but it's an open source license, so you can do whatever you want with it. You can actually change it, you can do whatever. So this option is here as well. Now this will download a zip file, which you then have to put in the right place and set up everything. So this is an option, but for now we're just going to go with the original Oracle download. So if we click download JDK, it's going to say, hey, you got to agree to this thing once we click on it. Now, you've got all your different packages here, so depending on what type of computer you have, whether you're running a Mac or a Linux or a Windows machine. So in this case, I'm just going to run the installer, okay? So if we just go ahead and click on here, it's going to say, hey, you got to review this, okay? Well, you click on this link, it'll pop up the whole thing. It tells you what you got to do, what you can and cannot do. I'm sure you're going to read it. And you click on the download link, and it's going to start the download for you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and download it, which I already did. Okay, so now we can actually install the software. So we're going to go ahead and go to our downloads folder, and we're going to go ahead and run this executable. And of course, you're going to have to click OK once it comes up. There you see it. And we click Next, and we're just going to install it to the default location. Okay, and I paused the video so you didn't have to sit there and wait for it. So you can click Next Steps to get information about this, but it's probably going to be a little bit above your head at this point. So we're going to go ahead and click Close. Now, to check, we can go into our C drive, Program Files, Java, and you should see a JDK and then the version that you downloaded right here. And it's going to be important to remember where you installed this because we're going to have to set up something a little bit later to make it so our environment can actually find the Java compiler. And we'll talk more about that later. Now that you got Java installed, or the Java development kit, now we can go and download Visual Studio Code. So if you just type in vsCode, and I highly recommend this because it's a great environment and it's easy to use. And they've come a long way with supporting Java. The initial versions of this class had recommended a program called TextPad, which works well enough and it's great for small files. But it lacks a lot of the benefits of some of the bigger IDEs. Now, some of the bigger IDEs are a challenge because they're too bloated and there's too much stuff, and for when you're just trying to learn the basics of a language, you don't need it. So Visual Studio Code is great for the types of assignments that we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on the Windows. I'm going to download the installer, and it's going to pop up and to download it, which I've already done, so we don't have to worry about that. And then there's all kinds of documentation on this website here. Highly recommend reading it. So let's go ahead and go to our downloads and run the installer. And of course, we're going to accept the agreements. We're going to install it to the default location. Now, what you're going to want to do is, I do this because I do more software development, is I like to add this to my actual file context menu. So this is so when you right click on a file, you can say, hey, open with Visual Studio Code. That's all that is saying. And then I also like to register code as an editor for supported file types as well. So we're going to click next, and it's going to do its thing. Okay, and we're done. And we'll go ahead and just launch it when we're done. When you first start Visual Studio Code, you're going to get taken to a screen that looks like this. You can open a folder. You come up here and click Open Folder. So let's go ahead and open a folder. And let's just use my desktop and let's create a new one. And we're just going to call it Hello. Okay. And then we select that folder. So now we are in the folder. Well, the Visual Studio Code will reload in that folder, okay? And we can get rid of this welcome message, okay? So now we're in this folder, and you can hide this tool pane right here by clicking this button, okay? And we want to create a new file. And so we're going to create a file called hello with a capital H .java, okay? All Java file names have to start with a capital H, as you'll learn. So as soon as we did that and clicked enter, it created that hello.java file, and you see down here that Visual Studio is telling us, hey, the Java extension pack is recommended for this file type. So I recommend you click install, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to run your Java program. Okay. So we're going to wait a couple seconds to do its thing. And when it's done, you'll get this Java overview, okay? And you can see down here, there's this little spinny icon. It's still installing stuff in the background. There's a number of extensions that actually come with this Java extension pack that enable you to write Java code. But for you, it should be pretty seamless. Now that the extension is done installing, you can go ahead and close the Java overview. And here we can code our first Hello World program. So to do that, we're going to say, public class hello, okay, and then we're going to give it some squiggly braces. And we're going to talk all about the syntax later. But from here, then we say public static void main string args, okay. Now, part convention is that we use what I call West Coast braces, where all of our braces line up underneath. We'll talk about that later too, when we get into styling. But it's also, if you're looking for code out in the wild, you may also see it like this, which is also a number of ways that people do it. But Park Style Guide says that we put our braces directly underneath the section block. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay. Now, this is where we enter our program at. And so right now, our program is set up, but it's not going to do anything. So let's make it do something. We're going to make it print out to the console. So system.out.println. And we're going to say, hello world. And we're going to end it with a semicolon. Okay, so this is our first program. Now, to run it, all you have to do is click run. And you wait a couple seconds. It takes a little bit longer the first time you run it. Okay, and then you'll see down here in our integrated terminal, you see that it printed out hello world. Awesome. I could change this to say class. And we click run. Okay. And then it's changed it to hello class. So what this is actually doing, it's actually creating a class file and then running the class file. So it's compiling it and then executing what it compiles. Okay, so it's doing two steps of the process. So if we were to do that ourselves, and remember earlier I talked about how we need to have a path environment set up, a path variable. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at what I'm talking about. So if you come down here and you type in environment, or just start to type it in, you'll get this pop-up here. And again, this is on Windows. If you're on Linux, there's another way to do it. If there's on Mac, there's another ways. You'll have to search the internet for that. But you come down here and click environment variables. Okay, and you can see here if we click on path, I've already added this line in. If this line right here is not here, okay, let's delete it. Boom, it's gone. All you have to do is you click browse and you point to where we installed our Java. So in this case, it's program files, Java, and then whatever version we want to be running with. And then we say, we click on bin. Okay, so you have to go down to this bin, that's the binary folder. That's where all of the actual executables are located. All right, and then we click OK, and we click OK, and we click OK. So that's how you do it. If you do that while your Visual Studio terminal is open, you'll have to close it and reopen it for the changes to take effect inside the terminal. But what this allows us to do is we can just say Javic, and then we can give it the class name, hello.java, okay? And that is going to actually compile the program. And you can see here that we now have this class file in our folder, okay? Before we didn't have that, and that's because when vsCode was running it, it was compiling it and it was dumping the class file in this location right here, okay? So I'm just showing you the manual way of doing it so that way you can know how to do it. And then to run it, we just type in Java hello, okay? And see it says hello class. So what this is doing, it's looking through all those paths that we set up in the environment variables. So if we come back to here and look at environment variables, it's going through this whole directory of locations looking for this Javic command and this Java command. All right, so if we pull up our Explorer and we go actually to, let's see here, program files, Java, JDK, bin, okay, you'll see a bunch of DLLs, those are just code libraries. And then here you can see that we have, here's our Java exe, here's our Java exe. These are the actual applications that are being run to compile and then run the code once we compile it. And we're going to talk all about it as it goes on. But I want to cover it all with you now so you have something to look back on when you're having issues. So if it's not there, what happens? Well, let's take it out. Let's pull up our path, edit, we can delete you, click OK, click OK, click OK, and let's see if it still runs. Yeah, it still runs because it still knows where it's at. So if we close this terminal and we launch it again, okay, and of course you can't read a class file because it's a binary format, it's not a text format. All right, and if we go ahead and say try to compile it, it's going to get this error. It's going to say the term Javic is not recognized as a blah, 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 right? It's basically saying, I don't know what this thing is that you're telling me to run, right? So go ahead and put it back in. Go to our path, go to edit, and then click browse. And then this PC, whoops, the wrong one. There you go. Again, you want the bin folder. Okay. And we click OK, and we click OK. If we try to run it, still doesn't work, right? Okay, but if I close that terminal, and then with Visual Studio Code, if you hit the Control and the tilde key, you'll get this terminal back, and I think it's up here under View as well. You can play around and find out what it is. I just know the keyboard shortcuts. So now we close the terminal, we reopened it. Nope, we didn't. We got to reload the whole Visual Studio. So now that we've reloaded, if we go ahead and run the Java compiler again, and now you'll see that it actually finds the program and can compile it. Java hello. So there you have it. That is how you install Visual Studio. That's how you install Java. And there's some differences and your mileage may vary, but that's the general principles and the general guidelines. You don't have to use Visual Studio Code. It's I like it, and there's a number of different things that we can do with it. But I'll get into that later in a separate video. So for now, this is just to get you started, and this is to show you what a basic Hello World program looks like. Okay.